Can you hear me well? Can you hear me well? Cannot hear me well. Okay, we seem to have some difficulties with Sina's connection. For some reason, his system is completely crashed. We're waiting for him. I'm gonna start very, very soon. Okay. I think we can. I mean,
Hello.
I can hear you, but you need to mute yourself here and you need to unmute yourself on the other side. Wonderful.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Wonderful. Can you hear me?
I can.
Wonderful.
But again, I hear a reverb. Although I can reduce my audio on my side.
Mm-hmm. Is it better maybe? Can you if you talk now?
Nope.
No, I lost you. Wait, can you say something?
Yeah. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
And is the audio quality
Worst.
good?
It's a little bit worse. We're making baby steps towards our development with our technicalities.
All right. Yeah, I'm just.
Okay, now it's good.
All right. I'm
It's
just
okay.
switch forth. It's like unplug and plug again.
Okay,
Yeah.
you're fine now. You're more than fine now. It's perfect. Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, let's go. Okay, wonderful. So thanks for everyone who's joined us. We are right now live streaming this on YouTube. You can join us on YouTube, or you can listen to us here on Clubhouse. We're streaming this to YouTube. We're streaming this also to Twitter. I'm gonna put the link to the YouTube channel in a few minutes here on Clubhouse, so you can watch us as well. If you want to have a conversation with us, you feel free to raise your hand, and we are going to bring you up, and we can have a conversation. Or if you have a question, we can also take questions. If you want to write us your questions, I kindly would like to ask you to ask us your questions on YouTube. There's a chat box on YouTube where you can ask the questions there, and we are going to display your questions and try to answer them. Okay, so today the topic of today's session or episode is currency debasement and the dysfunctional money, and dysfunctional money, basically how money can be dysfunctional. So I would like to start with the first question that Sina would go through with me, which is, what is a currency debasement and why does it actually happen? Sina, please.
Everyone, thanks for joining. And let me just reduce my audio a bit more. Okay, awesome. So basically, well, currency debasement is what arguably gave rise to development of Bitcoin. So it's something that's especially important. It has a lot of implications for how the society works, and how wealth is transferred and shifted. So one of the easiest way to define it is to say a change in quantity of money is basically, or maybe increasing quantity of money could be called inflation. And ideally, you don't want that to happen because it has a variety of negative effects. One of them is um, and basically the labor and the energy, the economic energy you stored in your money is gone, and somebody's basically taking advantage of that. So there is this direct effect on individuals, and it also has societal impacts in creating distributional issues. So basically, when you have inflation, generally what happens is those people who earn wage and store in that currency would be hurt the most, and then and that would generally be the poorer people. So those at the top, those running big corporations and all, because they have assets, they actually benefit from inflation. So this is basically causing a constant shift of economic energy and economic value from the poorer parts of the society to the wealthier part. And this is a highly destructive process. Um, other issues of this debasement is related to economic calculation. So any business entity must be able to plan for future based on what they understand about the value of money today versus tomorrow and how much a future investment should return to be a good investment, right? So that's how business entities make decisions. Now, if you mess with money, um, and basically make it such that it loses value over time, uh, then suddenly a project that yields zero economic value but only helps to keep your money's value over time, that project suddenly seem profitable. And you will see that in nominal terms you're earning money, but you're just keeping up inflation. And the one example would be just
So
buying a yacht or buying a
what
house
does
or
that
something.
mean?
Suddenly
Sorry,
these all become economic.
uh, Sina, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just real quick, just to clarify, what exactly do you mean by nominally your money becomes more valuable nominally? Can you explain that a little bit? What does that exactly mean?
Yeah, so basically, if I invest $1,000 today, um, the core premise is that that investment will create additional economic value. For instance, I go buy a higher technology. I buy a better machine that allows me to harvest more in my farm. I buy something that allows me to be more productive. So $1,000 spent today will create maybe $2,000 5 years from now for the society. So that's capitalism. You know I have accumulated $1,000 of capital. I put it into work. I invested, and that creates more value for the society. That's how the economy grows. That's the normal way. But if money is inflated such that um, $1,000 today is equivalent to $2,000 5 years from now. If that's the case, then your investment that did it basically yielded nothing. It only kept the value of your dollar, right? So the difference between good and bad investment goes away. A lot of bad investments seem good just because the dollar value of that investment goes up over time. But that's not because the investment is actually creating wealth. It's because somebody is messing up with value of money. And um, like I said, a good example is just buying a piece of land and doing nothing with it, right? So you have created no value for the society just owning a piece of land. You didn't farm anything in it, you didn't produce anything, you just kept it. But if you do that, you will see that over time you're actually making dollars. The dollar value of that land goes up, and uh, and it seems like you're getting wealthier. But what happens is you're just keeping up with the inflation trend, and nothing is really added to the
S-
output of your
So why is that something
your
bad,
activity.
right? I mean, why if I'm an average person and you tell me this is happening, if if the houses become more expensive because there is more dollars in the economy, why is that necessarily something bad for the average person? Let's say, is it that um, we call this a currency debasement, and why is it bad for the holders of that currency? Can you maybe explain that a little bit?
Okay, so fundamentally what it causes, like I said, is it messes up with economic calculations. So a lot of these economic entities that are supposed to generate value and invest and improve society and add more to the output, they actually stop doing that and instead get into speculation business and buy a lot of these hard assets that go up in price. So that's the first problem that it causes. Second problem is this activity causes the normal use of those assets to be impaired. If suddenly houses are like double or extremely more expensive than before, as we are seeing currently, the regular user of a house, which is a normal person who just wants to live, wouldn't be able to buy it. So if you do
So
the same thing
a
with
quite natural
food, people
demand
would
in that
starve.
case, right? A natural
What's
demand in
that?
that case. A natural demand in that case would be completely punished because He just wants the house to live in it, not to buy it because it goes up in value. He wants its use case. He wants the utility of the house. He gets punished.
Absolutely. So something that had utility now becomes money, and then the utility value of it is impaired. And but also, so basically, you get the society where like the poorest levels of the society aren't able to buy assets anymore, and they will end up being renters, and that's a cycle of staying poor and not accumulating wealth, and constant shift of the value to from these groups who can't accumulate wealth anymore, and the value of their wage is now being shifted to the owners of those assets. And lastly, there is this, your savings losing value. So generally, uh, again, regular people aren't hedge funds. They don't have the time to invest in making optimal decisions in investment and all. So one of the easiest way for people to accumulate wealth is just keep cash. And if you get a bit more sophisticated, you also enter some create a portfolio with some bonds and stocks and all. But one thing you cannot change your wage. You are dependent on your the value of your wage compared to all the commodities in the economy. So when you have inflation, suddenly everybody's wage is going down. Anything you store in the currency is going down, and you don't even realize it. And what happens is most people are like, "Yeah, this is something that just happened. I mean, inflation is a fact of life. We don't even know who to blame for, right?" So it's very easy to get away with. It's very easy to extract value from the society in that way.
So how does that even happen though? How has this problem became even a possibility, that this is even something that can happen in the first place?
Yeah, so that's the key question, right? And basically, we get zero education and training in money, even if you are, trained as an economist. Um, a lot of people don't have this fundamental understanding of how money works and what it's supposed to do. So basically, money is a promise for future trade. So basically, what happens is in a society, maybe we can go back to the basic primitive society where you're hunting or gathering,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So in the beginning, you could see families that generate food for themselves. So they're good enough, they can hunt or gather, and they find the food they need within the family. There's no trade here, and everybody's self-sufficient. Good enough, right? Then what happens is humans learn and improve, and something called economies of scale occurs. So people learn to do a better job in hunting. So suddenly, once they develop some certain tools and certain methods of hunting, and when they specialize, like one person discovers that they're really good at it. So instead of doing a combination of hunting and gathering, they say, okay, I'll just focus on hunting. I'm really good at it, and I'm going to improve my productivity a lot doing this. I can increase the food that I'm creating by 3x or 4x, which is really good. Um, so then your society becomes a society of experts. Some people do a certain thing, the other people do the other thing, and each of them get better and better in doing that, and they get a lot more productive. If you do all kinds of things, you can't do that, right? So you have to
Yes.
specialize, and specialization brings economies of scale, and that brings surplus. So then suddenly you have a family that has a lot of meat, but doesn't have a lot of grain, right? So, and then there's this other family that discovered how to do farming or growing grains, or maybe gathering them more efficiently and discovering the sources and all, developing tools for that. So now they have a lot of surplus of that grain, for example. And then this creates the need for these two groups to trade, right? So I have a lot of meat, and the value of those units of meat aren't equal to me. The first unit is very valuable, I'll depend on it. Second unit less, third unit is even less. Last unit I don't even have a use for it. It's just gonna go bad, right? However, I have a lot of use for another unit of grain. So um, I have all the incentive in the world to give you my extra beef or meat and get 1 unit of grains back. And when that happens is the meat that was useless to me ends up being very useful for the other person. So this trade actually, what it did is it got rid of the stuff that I didn't value and gave me the stuff that I value. So basically, both of us, both sides of the trade, are now better off. So the
So
economy grows.
what happens though if I trade with you something, but I don't want to consume it instantly? I would like to consume it sometime in the future. What can I do then?
Exactly. So for this trade to work, we need to have something like coincidence of wants. So basically, you should be right there available to give me the same thing, the thing that I want, so that I trade my meat with you. So let's say I don't want your grain, I want something else. Maybe I want a tool, right? And you don't have a tool, so we wouldn't be able to basically have a trade, or in this case, this is a barter, basically, and the economy wouldn't grow. So all the benefits that would come from trade would be nullified this way. So then people invented this thing called a token, um, or what we call money now, right? Something that creates a temporal distance between trades. So, for example, I can give you my meat, and if you in return give me a something valuable, let's say a piece of gold, um, or a rock, or limestone, whatever we value in that society. And then that limestone is also accepted by other people in that society. I can give you my meat to you with no expectation of anything in return except that limestone, right? In future, I can take the limestone to the market and get whatever it's worth back. Now, all of that depends on my limestone being tradable in future. So salability and tradability in future is a key component of money. And in essence, this is an account system. I just recorded how much I have produced for the society by owning that limestone. So this is an accounting, basically ownership of that shows that this person has created so much value for the society in the past. And in future, people would be able to trade similar value for that token, and basically that physical token becomes the
Form of
accounting
money.
system.
Yeah.
Now, what can happen is the operation of that token and the creation of that and circulation of it is what causes all sorts of problems. If we had a fixed number of limestones in our tribe, uh, there wouldn't be any problem because I can produce something today, get limestones, and tomorrow I can take it to the market and get the same amount of material from other people. So basically, we fix the temporal coincidence that needs to happen in trade, and we create a separation between me selling something and me buying something else over time. Now, what can happen is this chain could break, especially if somebody messes with money. So, if the value of money changes over time, um, the economic value of created today in exchange for that money cannot be uh, isn't equivalent to that money a few days from now, or a few years from now. And basically,
So
that's when the money becomes dysfunctional, and it loses its value.
so the very first reason why people used the token that you just described was essentially because they quite naturally came to consensus decision altogether on a decentralized basis, everyone for itself, everyone for himself or herself, that if they did not want to consume something instantly, they would rather keep something else that can hold the value that they provided in order to receive that value back sometime in the future. So therefore, they would choose something that no one can arbitrarily produce or easily produce. But also, not only that, they would rather choose something that is very easy to transport or relatively easily transportable and also durable, right? Because if they would choose something like a tomato to store value over time, that tomato will probably lose its value after a week or two because it's going to rot and it's completely valueless, right? So tomatoes are not a very good store of value, but rather something that cannot rot, cannot be massively produced through technologies, and therefore money is then, we can summarize, uh, an imagined token that could have any form or shape in an economy that people agree upon because of certain characteristics or properties. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, um, the consensus comes very early in the use of the money. So how that works is basically, uh, if I agree to get grains from you in exchange for my meat, if I don't have a need for grain, I will only accept grain if I know that tomorrow I'll be able to sell that grain for something else. So immediately, um, what I will accept as medium of exchange is something that is globally wanted by my tribe. So I'm sure that most people in this tribe will buy this wheat or grain from me in future. So automatically people gravitate towards something that's saleable, right? And that's what actually allows me to trust in the money to be able to to be exchangeable future for some other good that I need, right? And
So,
everything you said basically
mhm.
uh, are the factors that determines money's saleability. If it rots, if the grain is not usable a year from now, it's not a good good money, right? Or if the demand for it is changed over time in a significant manner, it's not good money. If it's not portable, if it's hard to move it from one place to the other, um, again, tomorrow's saleability is impaired. So basically, all of these are, you know, micro factors that determine the money's ability to perform that function and do good on the promise, which was future trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite fascinating to think about this or to talk about this because this is a topic that is not taught in any school. I mean, you're a professor, you have been in the academia world for some time. Is that taught in schools at all?
Not at all. Not at all. All of
Okay.
this actually was new to me once I learned about them. I mean, you pick up ideas here and there, but um, just simple things as what is a function of money. That's not discussed, and especially the general thought in economics is money is a veil, and economic activity is separate. So maybe we can just not think about money and focus on the economic activity,
Yeah, it's just
which is
it's just
okay.
it's taken for granted, right? That money is available and it just works. That's what is assumed, which is okay as long as the form of money everybody's using is working, right? But once things start to break down, if you don't start to question things, then obviously you can get wrecked, right? You can completely lose everything you've worked for all your life because ultimately we value things for ourselves and our families for the time we spend, right? That's why we go to work. That's why we produce. That's why we specialize. The whole purpose of an economy, of being even alive on this planet, is to uh, provide goods and services to others and consume goods and services from others. And if we don't want to do that on an instant basis, we would like to rather do it in the future once we cannot produce goods and services, right? That's what money is for. However, back to my question, how is that problem that we discussed, which is basically a dysfunction of a form of money, how is that even possible? So we said that a form of money must be scarce, transportable, um, durable, divisible, fungible, which means basically exchangeable, right? One unit equals one other unit. Like a bicycle is not very fungible because one bicycle could have a better performance than another bicycle, right? So it must be fungible. And we've tried many forms of money, right? We've tried seashells, we've tried salt, we've tried gold, we've tried silver. And the only thing that succeeded over hundreds of thousands of years was the one that no one could massively produce, because even salt, after a while, people found a way to massively produce it. The only thing that they didn't find a way for was gold. I mean, gold is still being produced, not literally produced, but mined out of the ground. Um, so it's not perfect, but it's the best thing we could find, let's say, in the real world, to use it as a token. But still today we don't trade with gold, right? We trade with paper, or not even paper. We trade with some digital promises, and we do it through intermediaries. So to tell us what happened there. What happened there?
Right. So again, going back to the central premise,
Yes.
money is a promise of future trade, right? So um, gold was great. Over time, people gravitated to hard money, as we call it, which was gold, because once you have a portfolio of things you can use as money, over time you will see that certain other types of money are not as good, or they're losing some of their value in terms of saleability, or durability, and portability and things like that. But gold was the best among those. However, to support global trade, um, gold was not uh, sufficient. It had a few issues. One is that its portability is an issue, right? So you can move physical bars of gold to do trade that easily. Over geography, gold loses value. So if you take gold from Turkey to US, once it arrives there, all the cost of transportation might translate it to a loss of 5% or 10% in value. So it doesn't hold its value over space, although it does a good job holding its value over time. Um, and other issues with that is like verifiability. Once you want to accept physical gold, you have to test it and make sure it's the real gold and it's not combined with some other things. So all of these factors caused us to not be able to use the physical gold as medium of exchange. So then people discovered, and this as actually has a long history, but uh, it got accelerated when we agreed on using gold. And the idea was that if we issue some sort of banknote that's transferable, or um, or exchangeable for gold, then maybe we can use those pieces of paper instead of the gold, and then fix the transportability. So if we are trading with one another, I don't have to move gold to you, I'll just bring my papers or certificates, which guarantee your ability to go to the bank tomorrow and give them the certificate and get gold back, which then allows you to trade in future. So saleability, that the promise of future trade would be satisfied. And later, people discovered, why do I even need to convert that certificate into physical gold? That certificate itself became the second layer of money, right?
So,
And
so,
then
so
it,
the
it
premise that people or gold bugs say money has to have intrinsic value is absolute nonsense, right? Because we just discovered that no one actually cares if the form of money has any intrinsic or physical intrinsicness in it, right? Because at the
yeah,
end of
that
the
is
day,
an absolutely misused terminology. What do you mean by intrinsic value? There's a lot of different ways to think about it. First of all, intrinsic value is not value in the molecules of something, which is like a lot of gold bugs are kind of getting confused over. It's not like gold molecules have something that makes them valuable. Um, like I said, money is a ledger, it's an accounting system. Anything that allows you
Mhm.
to do that accounting well is going to work. It doesn't have to be shiny or yellow or anything else. It needs to have monetary functions. And it happens that gold does those monetary functions well. And if you have something else that does these issues better, and it doesn't even have any molecules associated with it, it can be fully digital, it would still work well as money. But I will make the point, what is that intrinsic value that commonly is talked about? That comes from uh, basically Mises's regression theorem. So his argument is, was that money has to be something that is first very valuable. So, like I said, going back to our original tribe, um, I will accept wheat uh, even if I don't need it, because wheat is accepted in my tribe by everybody else. Why is it like that? Because it has value for the people, and wheat is something that everybody will need and accept later on in exchange for other things, right? So if there is money that's saleable, if there is a commodity that is completely saleable, it's wanted by the whole tribe. That's what we can call some kind of intrinsic value, or maybe it's just value, and that uh, is a good that makes the commodity very good candidate to be money, because it makes it saleable, right? Same thing happens with gold or any other, or kind of jewelry or diamonds that people have used as money. Because it is highly wanted, it makes it a good candidate to be money. And that's what we can call a commodity first being very valuable and then
Mhm.
becoming money, right? But that value is not a physical attribute. It's not in the
It's
molecules.
nothing
It's in
intrinsic.
the user's eyes.
Yes, yes, yes. I completely understood what you're trying to convey. Okay, so let's go back to this issue of having the problem of the form of money being massively manipulated. How does that happen? So we just concluded that gold was the only form of money over hundreds of thousands of years that was able to scale properly, but the problem was that it couldn't scale over space, right? You could not send gold as easily as you could send other stuff, like paper, for example. So we came up with the idea of why not trust some form of entities who take custody of this gold, and they give us promises and guarantees that we would get our gold back whenever we want. And then that form of money became ultimately the form of money we use today, which is basically just paper. um, so the problem was, actually, I would even say all the problems we have today is because gold didn't succeed. If gold was perfect money, we would have never had all the issues we have today, which is inflation, confiscation, privacy, and all sorts of issues that we have today because we are trusting other people to custody our money. We trust other people to give us access to our money. We actually, the majority of people don't have personal possession of their money, because if they have the money in the bank, it's legally not even theirs, right? It's owed to them and they can claim it, but it's not legally theirs. It's only their money if they actually go to the bank, withdraw the paper, and they have the paper in their hands. But even then, the production of that paper is not backed today by any gold. So the first thing that made money even money, which was the scarcity, what we discussed at the beginning of this conversation, is not there today, right? So the form of money that everybody is using is just a trust to that intermediary not to abuse its power, and hopefully not massively print it and take custody of it and give us access whenever we need to. So that's the problem, right? Because right now we have issues that we have inflation year over year on goods and services and on assets, because there's a certain number of people who decide how much money there is in the economy. And the reason
Yeah,
is
exactly.
because,
So
yes,
I mean, physical money was really good. It had perfect privacy. It wouldn't record who owned it before,
yes,
and um, it was final. Just ownership of that piece of material would prove that you own this much money, and then you just measure the amount of it in terms of weight uh, to see how much value each person owns. So the accounting was very well done in there. And as long as the quantity of that commodity didn't change, the accounting worked very good. So if we were unable to produce a lot of that commodity, which was the case with gold, um, uh, you know, the amount of wealth I've stored in that gold, or I've exchanged for that gold, would stay stable.
hmm,
But that obviously wasn't the case with a lot of other kinds of money, which people tried, but failed because those things were easy to find. Now, first on gold because it was scarce, it was hard to
yes.
produce.
So how
Now,
does yes,
once we decided that we want to use paper instead of gold to fix the transportability and verifiability issues, then we kind of uh, uh, remove this power, and basically we first saw that gold's physicality was great for some functions of money, but over time we discovered that actually that physicality is causing limitations in trade. So we
yes,
said let's trust somebody, and in exchange for that trust we get some form of money that's transportable and easy to use in trade and holds value over space. Okay, so fiat money is probably the only thing that is good for is over in transaction over space. It's easy to send money with it. Now the only problem is we got trust back for loss of physical guarantee and scarcity. And if you know anything about humans, is that if you give them a lot of power and and uh, and there's a lot of value at stake, they're going to misuse and abuse that power. So what happens is, you know, we created a paper system. Anyone in charge of that paper system can create new money. And our assumption is that we have democratic systems in which there are protocols and accepted procedures for creation of new money. But because there is so much value and so much at stake, the system gradually transforms into one that allows money printing to the benefit of people on top. And that's basically what we call the Cantillon effect. So
which
when you
makes
create
sense,
new
right? This
money,
happened to any form of money in the past. in history. This is, I mean, a lot of people think this is something new. This is a new phenomenon. Just because we didn't live through a complete currency or monetary collapse doesn't mean that this has never happened before. People just lack historical education to understand that there has never been any form of money that has survived empires, uh, uh, empires after empires. The only thing that did survive was gold, physical gold, right? For the reasons we just discussed.
Exactly, because unless you're God, you wouldn't be able to create gold, and that was the only reason that made gold work. But anything else that was in the hands of a human being was abused and will be abused. Same thing with the
Quite naturally.
yeah.
I mean, if you told me I can produce the amount of money that everybody is using, I will print more for myself than others. Honestly, who wouldn't?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Right?
And and basically, so if you do that, you'll probably feel bad and but there's a way to fix that. You can come up with an economic theory that says it's actually good to create that money and distribute it in the society. It causes, economic activity. It raises the animal spirits, and it's actually a good thing, right? So we solved the moral problem for ourselves as well, and now we can print money as much as we want, and it's actually, a service to the society. That's why Keynesian economics picked up and was very popular with governments around the world, because it gave them the reason they wanted to print money.
Yes. Okay, so let's come to the last part. Why does Bitcoin fix this problem? Uh, in I mean, let's keep it short because we don't have much time left. Just briefly, why does Bitcoin fix this problem? I always like to put it in a way to say that Bitcoin basically does everything that gold did for hundreds of thousands of years, and at the same time does everything that humans tried to do with abstractions of gold to scale it together, right?
Absolutely, that's a great way to put it. I like it a lot. So basically, this is we touched upon this in a few minutes ago, where we said the physicality of gold had a lot of positive things. However, it also created limitations in trade, and that physicality exists everywhere. Like, for example, if you have uh, you know a, a concert, right? You have to be physically there to enjoy it, right? So the value you produce is limited in with because it's physical. But if you transform that music into digital music, you abstract away the physicality, and with that, you remove all those limitations. So suddenly, your music can be transported everywhere in the world within 1 second, and with very low expense, with very low cost, and its value suddenly becomes, 100x, 1000x. Same thing happened with money with Bitcoin. And that was something we couldn't do, because with money we needed scarcity. With music, you don't need scarcity, right? But scarcity in digital world was something that was very hard to come by, and that's what Satoshi's invention gave us, and basically allowed us to have a gold which is not limited to the laws of physics in certain ways. So it can be transported very fast. It can be verified immediately because it's just math, uh, and it's programmable, and its quantity could be fixed or changed programmatically with no involvement of humans. So basically, we got rid of all the potential problems that gold would have had, or even fiat currency would have had, by creating this digital gold. So basically, you need durability. Because it's math, it's infinitely durable. As long as there is a single computer with a copy of the blockchain in the world, um, the accounting system is there and durable. uh, Divisibility, because it's math, you just divide it. You don't have to
Yeah,
come up with a
it's just a
smaller.
number, right? It's just a number on a computer. You can divide it as much
Exactly,
as
and
you
it can
want.
be divided into very, very small, you know. uh, Bitcoin is divided into satoshis, and even if you use lightning, you can do milli satoshis, so infinitely divisible. uh, and then obviously portability is not an issue. I can send anything I want, any amount, and it doesn't change the cost. At $1 worth of Bitcoin or $1 million worth of Bitcoin would be the same, almost the same effort and cost, and immediately verifiable on the other side. And the scarcity is guaranteed. With one little line of code, I can exactly, I can make sure that no new Bitcoin is created outside of the protocol rules. And the only thing really that Bitcoin lacks is the size of the network, which is just function of time. As it gets bigger and bigger, its ability to function as a medium of exchange grows higher and higher, and more entities in the economy will be incentivized to accept Bitcoin just because more people have already accepted it. So this network automatically grows exponentially, and that's the only thing sitting between Bitcoin as it is today and becoming a global reserve currency and de
So
facto money of the world.
so the conclusion out of this discussion is we have a monetary problem, which is governments control the money supply, and we cannot save that currency because it's not scarce, because it's not linked to anything else but governmental decisions. Governments have a lot of incentive to print it because of debts, pandemics, wars, whatever. They don't only have reasons today to do so, they also are highly incentivized to do so, because the people who can bribe get the money first, right? Who are on the top. So everything speaks for more printing, and it is mathematically not even possible not to print at this stage anymore because the world has so much debt. That's the problem. Now, how do we solve this problem? We convert that currency that we get paid for our work, and we convert it to the most scarce, to the most durable and transportable form of money that has ever existed, which is Bitcoin. And we just hold it and wait until other people find out what this thing is, right? That's how,
Yeah,
that's the solution, basically.
yeah, and
It couldn't
basically,
be, it couldn't be, it couldn't be said more simply than that, right? It's that simple.
exactly, and most technologies grow like that. In the beginning, their value isn't recognized, and especially something like Bitcoin that is money, and because of being money, it has network effects, and it has a second layer of network effect because of its programmability and all the other applications and utilities that could be built on top of
Yeah,
that. So it has huge.
but Sina, that's one thing. It has network effects. That's one thing. But I think what we just discussed and what actually proves that Bitcoin will win over the long term is the fact that there is no other place to go better than Bitcoin, right? There is just no other store of value that people can use to store their time in for their future as good as Bitcoin exists today. There is just nowhere else to go. Everything else is just a worst form of Bitcoin. And we learned over time, people choose the best form of money over time, right? If people want to save for the next 3 years, maybe they can choose something like the dollar. The dollar is somehow stable for maybe a couple of years, right? It's still it's not as bad to store value. It's still is inflationary in Western countries, but you're gonna lose maybe 10%, 15% of your wealth. But it's somehow still stable. You can pay everywhere with it. It's a good medium of exchange. So for that, you can hold something like dollars. But if you want to hold something longer than that, you have to look around to find something else. And the best form of everything else is just Bitcoin. It's that's why, because and that's the reason everything is going to emerge, and that's why everything is going to converge onto Bitcoin over the long term, right?
Yeah, you could argue that gold was also something useful, but they also took that from society. I mean, it's been confiscated several times. But now, even if you want to buy a lot of gold, physically buying it is very difficult. So instead, they allow you to buy paper gold, which is also heavily manipulated and inflated away. So
Yeah, it's not gold,
bonds are
right?
horrible.
It's not gold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, any other kind of property is something you do not truly own, and they let you to own. Like if it's treasuries, it's somebody else's debt, and it's a function of their ability and willingness to pay. If it's land, you are subject to the local laws, which can property significantly. If it's stocks, it's just a piece of certificate that tells you have a part of this company, and that could be changed overnight. I don't know, any kinds of other money you think about, there is no true ownership. There are always intermediaries which will take advantage of their position they're in.
Quite naturally, because they're human beings and they're greedy.
Absolutely. There's no
Okay.
doubt in that.
Yeah. Wonderful. Sina, a long session. We had a Persian session before this session. So I would say I think we covered pretty much everything. It was a very, very basic, fundamental discussion. Thank you for your time. For everyone who is listening on Clubhouse, just give us a follow on Clubhouse. You can click on the green little logo, which is Big Guide. You can follow the club. You can follow me. You can follow Sina. So whenever we do these rooms, you get a notification. You can also follow our YouTube channel. I've pinned it into the room. You can follow us there if you want to see our faces while we talk. You can do that. We're trying to do these rooms every week in both Farsi and in English. And as mentioned, we're working on some amazing courses to educate and to teach people about the importance of Bitcoin, how it can change your life, and how it can embrace you and your family and your future self. Thank you, Sina. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.